Well, this week, Defence Minister Richard Marles and Defence Industry Minister Pat Conroy announced the government will spend $1.7 billion over 5 years to acquire a fleet of Australian-made drone submarines known as Ghost Sharks.
This is the highest tech capability in the world. It exemplifies the fact that Australia is leading the world in terms of autonomous underwater military capabilities. And Ghost Shark is capable of engaging in intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance and strike.
Ghost Sharks are the brainchild of the US defence tech startup Anduril. Anduril was created by 32-year-old American entrepreneur Palmer Luckey. That's him right there. He's best known for inventing Oculus, virtual reality headsets. He then sold that business to the Facebook owner Meta for $2 billion US. He was 21 years old at the time. The amazing part of the deal announced this week is that Anduril has collaborated closely with the Australian Navy for 3 years to build these drone subs right here in Australia. Ingrid Willage got Anduril's Australian Chief Executive, David Goodridge, to explain just how that deal works.
It's an incredibly wonderful privilege to be awarded the $1.7 billion program of record to produce Ghost Sharks at scale. This follows a 3-year co-development process that concluded in June, where we produced 3 Ghost Sharks with a production-ready variant at the end of that program. And you may have been tracking that we delivered those Ghost Sharks ahead of schedule and on budget. So now we're moving to where the real work starts, which is to produce many, many Ghost Sharks for the Royal Australian Navy.
All right, can you talk us through the Ghost Shark for those who don't know what it is? Just tell us all about it. Sure.
Ghost Shark is an extra-large autonomous undersea vehicle. It is militarised because we have a commercial variant called the Dive XL as well as the Ghost Shark. The Ghost Shark is capable of doing a range of things. Firstly, ISR missions, in gathering intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, and importantly it also has a strike capability, and this makes Ghost Shark an incredible addition to the crewed capabilities that the Royal Australian Navy has in its Collins-class submarines and future AUKUS submarines.
It's really interesting because, you know, you co-developed and co-funded the Ghost Shark with the Navy, so it was this shared risk between you and the Australian Navy. Is this a common practice? I mean, just talk us through how important that collaboration was to the success of it.
Very much not common. I would say we're probably the only contract of its kind and hopefully the first of its kind. We'd like to see many more of these types of contracts where the private sector leans in and uses its own capital to help create capability that is of relevance to the warfighter. So where this takes us to is an alignment of interests, and the success of the Ghost Shark has not come by accident. It has truly been a partnership between the Royal Australian Navy, the Defence Science and Technology Group, the Advanced Strategic Capability Accelerator and Anduril in terms of working together as if we were one organisation, and that has delivered an extraordinary result.
It's really interesting because you mentioned timeline, and one of the big pluses, I guess, to this particular deal is that it was such a short time frame compared to what you would expect for a mammoth deal like this. Can you just explain to us how critical that is, and, you know, how do you manage to sort of be ahead of budget, ahead of sort of timeline with the technology and capabilities that are changing all the time?
Slight correction, we were under budget and ahead of schedule. Yeah. And that's really important because with the alignment of interests, we are not incentivised via a cost-plus contract to make the time extend and the costs increase. Cost-plus contracts, for the benefit of the viewers, are that the contractor gets paid a percentage profit on top of cost. Obviously, the incentive there is to increase the cost so that your profit as a percentage also increases. We only work on firm fixed price, so hence we take the risk. In terms of shared risk, yes, it was a 50-50 co-funded deal. We think of that as a great deal for the taxpayer because the taxpayer was only paying half of the cost of the program. Anduril was paying the other half, but we had a firm fixed price for 3 Ghost Sharks in 3 years. In fact, we produced 4 Ghost Sharks. The 4th Ghost Shark was produced by Anduril on its own balance sheet to accelerate the testing and evaluation of this capability in the United States.
What's the plan when it comes to manufacturing at scale? Because you've mentioned that's a big part of it. And when do you make the decision to export as well?
Well, the manufacturing at scale has started. We've invested $60 million in a state-of-the-art factory here in Sydney, and we will be delivering the first Ghost Shark to the Royal Australian Navy in January of next year. Yes, you heard that right. That's 3 months away from now. And that's extraordinary. In terms of the timeline, you're right. This is not a common timeline for a defence capability. Defence capabilities are much more longer term, generally speaking, because they adopt a very defence-specific approach, and that is to detail reams and reams of specifications before you start producing. We had a very small contract with a very few number of criteria, which we immediately started to engineer, and then we accelerated through. The first prototype delivery was 12 months ahead of schedule.
Can I ask as well, manufacturing here in Australia, that's a big deal. And I'm interested in this because, you know, how do you make this decision? Do we have enough skilled labour to make it happen to the scale that you wish? And I guess how important is it that Australia has this sovereign capability?
We don't do enough manufacturing of defence capabilities in Australia, full stop. We started Anduril Australia in 2022 with the mission for creating or to build a capability that could be manufactured in Australia. So Ghost Shark is engineered in Australia, tested and evaluated in Australia. It will be produced in Australia by Australians for the Royal Australian Navy. We believe there is a massive export market for Ghost Shark, and subject to government approval, which we believe will be entertained favourably, we will be exporting Ghost Shark to our allies and partners in the region.
When I look at your company, it's really interesting, and I know you've mentioned this before. You know, we hear of disruptors to media, disruptors to retail. You're basically a disruptor to the defence industry. Can you elaborate on that?
I'd like to call it a positive disruptor to the defence industry, and positive in the sense of we're not seeking to disrupt for the sake of disruption. We're seeking to disrupt because the global geopolitical situation has changed. We see it, unfortunately, in the media all too regularly in the Ukraine and the Middle East, that drone technology and autonomous systems are becoming more and more common. They are continuously updating and upgrading from a threat perspective, and what we need to do is to be able to get ahead of that threat change, to be able to respond and to defeat those capabilities. So from an Australian perspective, if we get into a conflict, we just absolutely have to not have our supply chains disrupted like they were in COVID, because a war, a global war, will make COVID look like a picnic. So having this sovereign capability in Australia, we can't have everything produced in Australia. That's just not possible with respect to a small country like Australia. But things like a Ghost Shark, where we have great expertise in the undersea domain, and we can produce it with amazing technical skills that we have in this country, we should absolutely do that. And
Australia is, you know, surrounded by sea, so it helps to have capabilities in that area.
We are a nation girt by sea, exactly, as our Chief of Navy has said on many occasions.
AI and technology, interesting, plays a really big part in war, which, you know, you don't really think about, well, I don't really think about information being such a big part of winning a conflict or in defence, or sort of giving you the leg up in defence. Talk us through how information plays a role in this and how you play a role with the information.
Well, Anduril's often thought of because of our amazing products, but really what we are is a software company, and everything Anduril does is autonomous. Everything Anduril does is based upon our open architecture operating system that's called Lattice. And Lattice fuses an unlimited number and amount of data into a common operating picture that gets presented to the commander or to the warfighter with a range of AI-generated options. The human being or the commander then selects which option, and the AI system, the Lattice system, implements that option. So it's absolutely fundamentally critical in the modern battle space for AI to be included. Now, we talk about trusted AI. Our adversaries don't really care about the trusted AI component, but we do, and we should. And so the conversation around trusted AI needs to continue. We're participating in that conversation because AI is going to be absolutely crucial to winning the next war.
And what sort of risk-taking is involved? How do you sort of decide where to put your R&D?
We pick opportunities where we believe the warfighter can benefit, and we invest our own shareholders' capital in developing solutions that then we present to the warfighters. The warfighters then use our products, use our capabilities, and give us feedback. That feedback is turned into a second iteration, and because it's software driven, that iteration happens really, really fast. So we do changes to the software in sometimes hours and days, as opposed to previously it used to take weeks and months. Yeah. And that is the pace of change that has to be adopted in the modern warfighting scene.
Can you just give us an idea of somewhat US defence companies versus Australian defence companies? Because US defence companies, they have a real sort of stronghold in the market, a lot of respect there. Is there a difference coming at it from an Australian perspective, do you find?
I don't think so. I think we have very strong alliances with the United States. They're a critical security partner. We have a lot of societal and cultural connections with the United States. But Anduril Australia was set up to meet the needs of the Australian Defence Force. Those needs aren't uncommon with the United States Department of Defence and the United States Defence agencies either.
David, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
And just a little addition to that story, Anduril also has a contract for a 3-year trial with the RAAF to deliver air and ground defence capabilities at RAAF Base Darwin.